And more, we have Chris Nelson, Executive Director and Trustee of the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. Good morning, Chris. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and pleasure to be here. Good morning to all your viewers.
Okay, so now, again, post-election scenario, post-Holy Week scenario, there are concerns that there might be an uptick in COVID infections here yet again. What would this mean for the investment climate here in the Philippines? And can we afford to tighten restrictions yet again? If not, what should be the strategy here?
Yeah, look, thank you very much. I think, first of all, of course, we've always been a big campaigner and supporter of, obviously, the vaccination program and the boosters. And we've worked very closely with Joey Concepcion and, obviously, his work, obviously, with Secretary Galvez. So, clearly, what we would see is the way to do this is, obviously, to do the boosters, to be very specific if there was an uptick. And obviously, yes, I think what we need to do and to avoid is that obviously any general restrictions. Clearly, the way it was being developed was very specific restrictions. But if you take the example of other countries, and I mean, let's just do a comparison with the UK. The UK, of course, has lifted all restrictions, and that's premised, of course, on the vaccination rate, but a continuing drive to boost. So, yes, I think there's a definite need to avoid, obviously, general restrictions, and we totally support the drive and the need for boosting, because that's the way forward, and to keep the economy driving forward.
To what extent should this be required for the business community? I mean, I think the last interview we had with Joey Concepcion, he did mention something like 13% of booster take-up over in Metro Manila. And the vaccination story by June would be defunct because basically you would need a booster by then. But a lot are very hesitant. To what extent do you think this needs to be required and that the unboosted people might face some restrictions?
Yes, I mean, look, this has always been a bit the debate. I mean, you've seen it in various other countries. I have a lot of experience actually from Portugal. There, they have one of the highest vaccination rates in the world. Boosters actually tends to lag behind because people get vaccinated. But of course, the booster is needed in terms of obviously keeping that immunization rate up. So, yes, I think there's a need to do both. I think we need to constantly be echoing the need for the booster rate. I think let's all be very fair to the efforts of Joey, Secretary Galvez, the IATF, that actually the vaccination rate improved. Now, of course, we also need to be communicating on this because what we don't want to see happen is those general restrictions. Because if I recall your earlier part of your program, I mean, clearly, Moody's has just trimmed the rate of growth for the Philippines, but there has been quite a marked recovery, particularly in the last quarter, and that needs to be getting going. And that's, as you've seen, because the restrictions have come off. So, yes, I think, though, educating a new campaign to really communicate why the booster is such a benefit, but at the same time stressing to people that it's necessary to do your work or to go out, yes.
Okay, now talking about recovery, of course, much of that also will hinge upon the implementing rules and regulation of a number of economic reforms that have been passed by the recent administration. We're talking about Retail Trade Liberalization, Foreign Investment Act, and the Public Services Act here. Question now is, since the passing of these measures, have we at least drummed up enough interest here from British investors?
Yes, I mean, I think so. First of all, we're very pleased with the 3 acts that were passed, and I think that shows a great effort made by Congress. So just a quick recap, that's the Retail Trade Act, Foreign Investment Act, and the Public Service Act. The Retail Trade Act already has the implementing rules and regulations published. We've already started communicating that and already had one event to promote that to UK investors. We're still waiting for the IRR of both the Public Service Act and also the Foreign Investment Act. And obviously, we urge that will be completed, obviously, hopefully before the completion of this administration. And I think that once those are there, there would be a great deal of interest, particularly the Public Service Act, which obviously could realize significant investment. But I just want to stress that we believe that these acts, the passing of these acts, is a very critical move and a very good signal And I think it will be shown to be a long-term support to the economy. So yes, interest levels are there, need to finalize the implementing rules, but very optimistic.
Okay, and of course, one more remains pending, and that might not happen until, of course, the next administration. That is the RCEP membership's ratification. And a lot of that is also hinged on the contention regarding the agricultural sector, particularly with imports coming in. And we did talk to you off air before the broadcast, and you did mention that the UK has some plans in terms of pork imports here in the Philippines, or other meat. In fact, tell us more about that and how that would, whether there are safeguards to protect the domestic market.
Sure. So, first of all, let me also say that we are strong supporters of the Philippines joining RCEP, and there are much more potential upsides for RCEP, and I think that the Philippines will benefit strongly. And I think there has been support given and discussions made by the key people in DTI, which was Undersecretary Gepti, on those supports for the agricultural sector. So overall, RCEP and the joining of RCEP is seen as a very important move for the business sector, and also the UK would strongly welcome that. Now, in the context of our trade mission on British beef and pork, which we're organising, which will be coming here in May, that's in conjunction with the Horticultural Development Board of the UK. This is in relation to the fact that obviously pork imports quotas have gone up because, as you're probably aware, the local herds have been very much hit by the African swine flu. And that was one of the reasons which, of course, had spiked inflation. So British pork and British beef is well known for its sustainability, high quality, and obviously the imports or the exports from the UK to the Philippines for pork, and now we're hoping for beef, have gone up significantly. And we see that as an opportunity and a win-win for both sides. And of course, that will assist also in terms of keeping the food inflation, which was another factor. So looking very much to develop business between the two. We have a number of meetings set up, and it's a reflection that this is one of their first trade missions, obviously, since, travel has resumed in general in this post or coming to the end of this pandemic era. And I think it's very relevant to see that they've chosen the Philippines. So very excited. So one, we support RCEP. Number two, this will be a benefit, and we look forward to dealing with, obviously, the UK, Philippine importers for British beef and pork, and seeing that in the next May, 17th to 19th of May.
All right. Chris, before we let you go, of course, the big news still, of course, we're just less than 2 weeks away before the next elections here. We did mention RCEP, of course, is going to be dependent on how the next government will perform. But this time around as well, based on what you've heard so far from our candidates here, are you confident that the next administration, at least who among them do you think will be the most investment friendly here? And what is on top of your agenda for the next government?
Well, look, we wish, obviously, everybody the best. And we obviously believe strongly the election will go smoothly, and we wish everybody all the best of luck. In terms of policies, I think we've seen all the candidates make references to further economic support. And I'd like to just echo, obviously, what's happened with the current administration. Clearly, the passing of those economic reforms, we would welcome further liberalisation of the economy. Let me stress, whenever we deal with the UK, we highlight the Philippines as an important market, but it's also a gateway to Southeast Asia. We'd also like to see the next new administration continuing its investment in the infrastructure, with a particular emphasis on the digital economy. That's become very important, particularly, obviously, as we've seen that grow substantially during the last 2 years. And I think that'll be very important. So we're optimistic. We've seen, obviously, all the candidates make references to the need to support the economy and the development. And I just like to keep the momentum going in terms of, obviously, what's happened in terms of the investment in the infrastructure into the current administration, the passage of these economic reforms. And we believe, as the British Chamber, as one of the leading advocates of that, is that this will realise substantial increases in foreign direct investment. So we're looking forward to that.
All right. right, so more liberalization hopefully on the table. And as you mentioned, we do need the IRRs there set in stone for the investments to come in and trickle in. Thank you so much. That was, of course, Chris Nelson, Executive Director and Trustee at the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now, coming right